This is a talk, a little video blog that is titled, "Are Conservatives Just Unevolved Liberals?" I was quite pleased with myself for that title. I thought that was pretty cool. Are Conservatives Just Unevolved Liberals? So let me tell you what, I know some of you hate Jordan Peterson, but I think he's very insightful, let's say 2/3 of the time. And this is where I think he's pretty insightful. He says, the left wants to perfect the state, the right wants to perfect the individual, knowing that the state will follow. And I think that's really a beautiful way to summarize the political parties. And I think that I believe that as a young person. When I first registered to vote in 1967, I registered as a Republican because I felt that individual rights were more important than whatever it was that the Democratic Party stood for. That was in 1967. But then 1968 happened, and seemed like everything kind of exploded. There was civil rights movement, there was the Vietnam War, there was women's rights, the environmental movement, and so on. And the Republicans were against each and every one of those movements, which didn't make any sense, really. I mean, how is gay rights or civil rights, how is that not supportive of the individual? So I began to be a little suspicious at that point, and I was never for any particular Republican. Well, I was in the '64, I think I was rooting for William Scranton, the governor of Pennsylvania, to pull it out at the Republican convention here in San Francisco. But Goldwater had other ideas in mind. So it seemed like the premise that I was basing my political philosophy on was a ruse. I mean, Republicans say, oh yes, I'm for the individual, but when it comes right down to many individuals, they were against women's rights, they were against the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, they were against civil rights, they were against gay rights. These are all, maybe, you can't say they're that representative of the state. These are individual rights, and they were against them all. All right, so I changed my thinking. And in 1968, Nixon started something that he called the Southern Strategy, which was an effort which turned out to be very easy to do, since the Civil Rights Act was in '64 and the Voting Rights Act was in '65. All the white supremacist Dixiecrats now, like Johnson said, we've lost the South for a generation, and it's been like we've lost the South ever since 1964 or 1965, both of them. And he was right. So the Dixiecrats became Republicans, and the Democrats lost the South. Here's Lee Atwater was a campaign advisor for George H.W. Bush, and this is what he said in a 1981 interview. You all don't quote me on this. You start out in 1954 by saying nigger, nigger, nigger. By 1968, you can't say nigger. That hurts you, backfires. So you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights, and all that stuff. You're getting so abstract now that you're talking about cutting taxes, and all these things you're talking about are totally economic things, and a byproduct of them is that blacks get hurt worse than whites. and subconsciously maybe that is part of it. You follow me? Because obviously sitting around saying we want to cut this is much more abstract than even the busing thing, and a hell of a lot more abstract than nigger nigger. So any way you look at it, race is coming on the back burner. So that I have concluded, along with most of the rest of the world, is what's going on with the Republican Party, that it's a cover, if you will, for racism. And you can call it cutting taxes, or you can call it whatever you want to call it, but or you can call it, being against Medicare for all, which most people aren't, even Republicans aren't. But the Republican establishment, not to mention the Democratic establishment, is against Medicare for all. And that's just another way of saying, well, yeah, but won't the blacks get free Medicare that way too? Anyhow, that's my feeling, that racism is at the bottom of all this crap that we're calling the Republican Party. So today I am a proud member of the, let me get this for you. Okay, I don't know if you can, yeah, there it is. Today I'm a proud member of the San Francisco Bernie-crats. I've been a member of the San Francisco Bernie-crats for maybe not even a year, but I was certainly a Bernie supporter in 2016, and I campaigned for him and I donated for him, and then I continued that in 2020. So Bernie-crats are in favor of Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, student debt forgiveness, $15 minimum wage, equal pay for equal worth, getting rid of the privatization of prisons, legalization of marijuana, and things that most people are really in favor of. Maybe not most leaders in either the Democratic or Republican Party, but most people in this country are in favor of. But one of the strange things about the Bernie-crats is that we begin each meeting by making sure that we are aware of our privilege. So, the moderator of the group goes through and says, if you have privilege, whatever it is, whiteness, maleness, straightness, whatever, that you should be aware of it. And in your discussion with other people, you need to step back and let other people have the floor and give them an opportunity, because they've been denied for so many years. And I think that's a strange way of trying to atone for historical injustices. I think if you have privilege, you should use it. I think that's what FDR did. And to edit yourself or mute yourself because of your so-called privilege, then you might be muting an excellent idea, a supportive comment, any number of things. So it's a stupid, crazy way to run an organization. Also, it's kind of a nervy kind of thing. Like, how the hell do you know if one is a straight white male, what kind of privileges? I mean, you can go on whatever kind of privilege you may have had. What kind of privileges you may have had in your life. Do you consider one who comes from a broken family to still be privileged? Do you consider one who has been sexually abused to still have privilege? Nobody knows what's going on in somebody else's history, but as you see somebody said somewhere online or just in the general zeitgeist that everybody's, be kind to everybody because everybody's fighting their own inner battle, their own inner war. So to judge somebody by their privilege is just terribly misguided, and I think enforces a sense of difference rather than commonality. And it's unfortunate. I hope it's something that the left, in particular, can wean itself away from. It's very counterproductive. So one of the, and also, the Bernie-crats are very big on, these are great ideas. I think the Bernie-crats are typical leftist kind of organization where these are the ideas that we want to fix the state first, and then everything will follow. So, if only we get Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, student debt forgiveness, $15 minimum wage, and so on, then everything will fall into place. And so that's putting the state before the person. And it doesn't take into consideration the person. And so I put in a suggestion one time for the platform committee that we include, along with every time we meet, our monthly reminder of our privilege, and to step back because of our privilege. I like this paraphrase by Marianne Williamson, who said, "Self-purification must precede political activism." And she got that from Gandhi and Martin Luther King. So, these are no slouches in the department of political demonstration and trying to get something done. So Gandhi says, "God can never be realized by one who is not pure of heart. Self-purification, therefore, must mean purification in all the walks of life. And purification being highly infectious, purification of oneself necessarily leads to the purification of one's surroundings." And Martin Luther King, in the letter from Birmingham jail, says, "In any nonviolent campaign, there are 4 basic steps: collection of the facts to determine whether injustices exist, negotiation, self-purification, and direct action." And so Marianne Williamson's paraphrases that in those sentiments into self-purification must precede political activism. So this is something the left doesn't do anything about. And that's a problem, because you have all kinds of people who need a bit of self-purification running around saying this is what we need, and oftentimes it is what we need. But if they haven't looked into their own psyche and their own history and their own awareness, it can short circuit everything that we are trying to do. And I say we being on the left. So, and it does short circuit us. Now, the other organization that I belong to is called the Prosperos. It is a organization that is the goal of the Prosperos is self-observation and self-transcendence. So the basis of identity in the Prosperos is being itself, consciousness itself. So we don't look at each other according to our level of privilege, but more according to our level of awareness. The founder of our organization and late Dean Thane Walker says, he spoke of the aristocracy of the aware. So we are an organization that is trying to seek a better world through the evolution of the individual. Through the expanded consciousness of the individual, we believe that we can make a better world. And it starts with yourself. It then expands to other people, and then eventually it expands to the whole world. But a lot of times in a spiritual organization, including the prosperous political work, is not done at all. When I was very active in the school in the 70s, I mean, that was when the teacher was still around, and the 70s and 80s, and there was an active student body. The subject of politics, people may have talked about the Vietnam War, I guess, from time to time, but certainly not anything that was ever taught or encouraged. But I think that any kind of organization which is teaching and practicing transcendence needs to not be idiots when it comes to the world of politics. Now, idiot is a Greek word meaning somebody who does not participate. So, that's why I think it's important for us for us as spiritual students to participate fully in the political life of our community and of our nation and of our world. And if we don't, then what are we in the school for? If we're in the school just for our own transcendence of our past, let's say, or so we're no longer quite as neurotic as we used to be, that's good, but unless that can be used in a practical, social, and political way to help others, then it's short-circuiting. And I think, the idea in the Prosperos is that our goal is greater and greater awareness, and this is something that I think that we can share with political movements if they're willing to share that tenet of thinking that awareness is important now I'm forgetting what I'm saying. Okay, let me put it this way. So in the Prosperous, people are trying to increase their awareness and all that. But if you've been a student of the school for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and you still think, Trump seems like a pretty good leader. I have no problem with his fascist tendencies. I think he's a strong leader. Then I think you've missed the boat. As far as just being able to tell what is in front of your nose. In the Prosperous, we talk about the abstract truth, and we if we anything, we revere the truth, the whole truth, the absolute truth, as it's called in New Thought circles. But if we're going to be students of absolute truth, we have to begin with being students of relative truth. And if we can't see what's in front of our nose, and if we can't tell a con man from a leader, then we need to begin again in our effort to look at the world as it is and try to gain some kind of awareness. So my premise then is that I watch different news organizations, and it seems to me that, like, if you watch Democracy Now!, for example, Amy Goodman will be covering a story, and there's nothing particularly liberal about anything that she says. It's the only thing that makes a show what you could call liberal is the kind of thing she covers. She'll cover something more thoroughly than, let's say, something on MSNBC or CNN or Fox News. So it seems it's not so much the truth that they expose, but the perspective that they expose, so we need to and I think that applies to our political alignment as well. If we consider ourselves a Republican, then we've bought a particular perspective, and if we consider ourselves progressive, then we've bought, I think, a larger perspective. The right-wing perspective might be, William F. Buckley says conservatives want to stand before history and say halt, and progressive want to take into consideration our history and look at our history, like the author of The People's History of the United States. His name is I can't think of it at the moment, but anyhow, if you look at the history, warts and all, then that's the progressive state of mind, in my opinion. So if we look at slavery, the eradication of Native Americans on this continent, our decimation of the earth in the name of economic progress, then that's taking a look at the whole picture. And if you want to just take a right-wing look, you look at, well, we are a great country, we have a strong military, we're strong economically, and we don't want anything to get in the way of that. And we're not going to look at our past other than to call it a tradition, or I forget what they call the statues of the Southern generals in the South, the way of life or something like that. But that's so important, the difference between right wing and left wing, if you are going to be a student of transcendence, personal transcendence. You can't look at your life and just say, well, I'm not going to look at that period of my time because that wasn't a happy time and I just don't want to look at it. Not realizing, or maybe realizing that that period of your life is totally influencing your life today. So if you want to have a right-wing mentality about yourself you can say, well, I'm a good person. I pay my bills. I don't beat my kids. Or if I do, I don't do it too much. And I'm not going to look at some of these feelings that I have that I don't understand. I know Trump once said he doesn't like to examine himself too much because he's afraid of what he might find. And that's a pretty good summation of the right-wing mentality toward self-examination. Now the left wing, if you will, I think is open, at least so politically, to looking at the past and trying to make amends, trying to make reparations, if you will. And we need to do that not only socially, but individually. We need to look at the past and make reparations. Whether, like they say in AA, when you have harmed somebody, you have to go back and find all the people that you have harmed and let them know that you're sorry and all this kind of stuff, and atone. That's kind of really important. So that's a lifetime of work, and so I would recommend that the left kind of merge with AA, and maybe we can have a more robust political life than we have had. It's not just a matter of getting out there and fighting for or fighting against killer cops, for instance. We have to always remember what Gandhi, King, and Marianne Williamson say, that we need to look in to our own psyche, into our own past, into our own motivations. And so it is, getting back to Jordan Peterson, then it is a matter of, I think the ideal political stance would be through change through individuals that are working for change in the state. Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, which is the news program that I spend the most time with, says conservatives don't support an issue until it affects them. So, like in the gay movement, for example, when it first started out in the modern gay movement, when it first started out in the late 60s, it was very small, but then as more and more people came out through their families and friends, even conservative people knew people that were gay, and eventually it just became acceptable because even conservatives could see that this was something that they had personally experienced in their life. So I think what Cenk is trying to say is that okay, I don't know where I got cut off, but let's start again at Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks says, conservatives don't support an issue until it affects them. This can be most easily seen maybe in the gay movement, the gay rights movement. When it first began in the late 60s, people were not very supportive of it. It was not very successful. But as more and more people became aware of gay people in their life, in their family, even conservatives were able to empathize and say, well, this is a person I know, so I have no problem with gay people. But on the other hand, progressives or liberals, I think Cenk is saying, that are more empathetic and don't have to wait until something affects them personally before they have empathy. I think that politically we should not. I think it's very self-destructive to talk about left versus right. I think it's not a competition, and it's not. We're all in this together, and we're all trying to have a better life. And so I think it's not horizontal. I think it's not left versus right. I think it's vertical. I think it's aware versus less aware. I think it's evolved versus less evolved. I think it's woke versus less woke. That's a term that came into use by social justice warriors, I guess, recently. And it's interesting because I think it is attempting to include a certain kind of spirituality in political life. And that's what I'm proposing, is that the political groups need to become more spiritual. The spiritual groups need to become more political, so that we should be trying to perfect the individual at the same time that we're trying to perfect the state. My teacher, Thane, talked about the 3 lines of work: working on oneself, working with others, and working for the work of the world itself. And he said that you made the most progress, I guess, individually and collectively, when you're working on all 3 lines at the same time. So working on yourself, working with other people, and working for the world or the work itself. So I think it was Eckhart Tolle, somebody like that, said, the world is not here to make you happy. It's here to make you conscious. So if that is any help, I think that's all I have to say. Thanks.